Welcome to Global Connections on ThinkTech Hawaii. I'm your host, Jay Fidell. Today we're going to talk about Putin and Modi, what a combination, analyzing the strength, the character, the success, the dangers of their bilateral discussions. Our guest for this show is Roopmati Khandekar, geopolitical analyst. Welcome, Roopmati.
Aloha, Jay, and thank you for having me on your show. Always my pleasure.
Well, there's a lot of questions about this, but I think people need to understand the relationship between India and Russia because it's all against the backdrop of that. Can you talk about the historical relationship of the two countries? Because that will inform us as to exactly why Modi is willing to make this embrace of Putin.
Yeah, so Jay, now it starts with Modi winning his historical third term as Prime Minister of India. It's never happened before, right before 1962. And he chooses Russia to go for his first overseas visit. So it now brings out, it raises eyebrows in the West, and even the Kremlin calls it that the West is viewing it with jealousy. Jealousy is the word that they use. And all eyes of international relations focused on this meeting. So, Jay, why it was such a historic meeting and why this Modi-Putin dynamic is so important. Like you said, first we have to go for the historical ties that happened. So it's always a question that we are asked, right? Like it's troubling to see why Modi is siding Putin, or why is India being so nice with Russia, even in the face of Ukraine war. This question keeps on pricking everybody's mind, right? So now let me just take you back into history and let you remember the Task Force 74, which was formed. The first task force was formed between the Royal Navy, the Royal Australian Navy, and US Navy to tackle Japan, okay, during the World War. Now that the point that comes in, when was the second task force formed? That was the US 7th Fleet, which came into the Indian Ocean to intimidate India when India was on a full-on fight, on a war with Pakistan in 1971. So, Jay, it was a direct threat. You had the warship right in the sea, and we are facing a very antagonistic and crazy neighbor who just wanted to, it was a difficult time. And when America threatened, Russia at that time had brought its it had brought two groups of bombers and a submarine with nuclear warheads, and it kept on following the US fleet, neutralizing the aggressiveness from 18 December to 6th January 1971. Long time back. But it laid the foundation for this partnership, Jay. Because though India has been with Russia since 1947, since one of the first countries to start diplomatic relations, this particular incident has, stayed in the Indian minds that in the face of a war, Russia came to help. And that strategic bond that they made, the strategic partnership that they made, they openly declared that anybody who attacked India would declare a war on us. Because just imagine at that time, if we had to face a US 7th Fleet, it was total defeat for India. So that loyalty stuck through, and the strategic partnership kept on going strength to strength. And Jay, even when Ukraine was happening, they have come and to India first, and Russia and China, though they're very good friends. And India cannot come in between this partnership. India stands as a third, as a more loyal and trustworthy friend for the Russians. So, Jay, this dynamic is very, very complicated. But
I think so. But let's go back to the 7th Fleet in the 70s. Why did the U.S. do that? It sounds like it was a gross error.
Yes, definitely, Jay. Because why, I'll tell you, if India was in normal circumstances and you send the 7th Fleet, agreed. But just to help Pakistan or to intimidate, the notion by the Nixon administration was very clear. It was to intimidate India to stop the war or concede defeat in the war against Pakistan.
Roopmati, that had to be Henry Kissinger and Richard Nixon, right?
Nixon administration had sent this. And Russia could have just watched. It did not need to send a submarine with nuclear warheads. So that neutralized the aggression again. It gave a very, when you are drowning and you get support, that you remember. So that's what happened with India, and that's the foundation on which India-Russia strategic partnership is laid. Sheer trust, sheer loyalty, because Russia did not need to come in between this. But it came and it declared, if anybody attacks India, it will be war on Russia. Declared. And it kept on following the fleet, Seventh Fleet, till it withdrew. So America did not need to come in between India and Pakistan fighting a war, first part first. And secondly, it should have been a diplomatic pressurization, not sending a warship into the Indian Ocean. So that was a tactical error, like you said. But Russia steps in. Then, during the vetoes on the issue of Kashmir, time and again in the United Nations, Russia has helped with the veto. Otherwise, India would have had to face a lot of flack at the UN forum, and we know how they talk and how it pressurizes countries to give in. So every time a resolution against India was passed, Russia has vetoed.
Let me go back. The whole affair in the Seventh Fleet was, that was more than 50 years ago.
1971.
Yeah, and at the same time, it seems to me that Narendra Modi is a very strong, charismatic leader. People like him, they're willing to follow him, and he's smart enough to know exactly what's going on in the world. He's a world power. And he's, resolved enough to make decisions. So if he decided one day that he was going to shove off from Russia for other reasons of, protecting himself from China or endearing himself to the United States and Europe, he could do that. People would follow him. You wouldn't see protests in the street over something that happened 50 years ago, would you? So, he's got his reasons to perpetuate this historical environment you describe.
Yeah, Jay, around 20 years back, like you see, Narendra Modi was part of the contingent under Prime Minister Vajpayee, which went to Russia. And so he has had historical ties with Putin since decades now. So they are strategizing, and the aim is for a multipolar world in which these two countries are poles. Today we are living in a hegemonic world. So that is the long distance aim that they have. But if you go to CJ, Modi wants to secure India's strategic interests in a turbulent global landscape. And Jay, about siding Russia in the Ukraine-Russia conflict, one more reason I'll tell you, Ukraine has always sided Pakistan. It's like India and Pakistan are perpetual enemies. Pakistan was formed out of India. Okay, it is carved out of India as a Muslim majority state, but it has waged multiple wars against India. It means we had turbulent times with them because of each war. Jay, economy plummets. You have disturbances in the economy, and so having an antagonistic neighbor is a nuisance. And Ukraine is the one which has always penned down antagonistic rhetoric against India in the Kashmir issue, in the in the UN. The trade relationship was not nurtured. Now, if you go to see, before Ukraine 2022, India had $25 billion of trade with Russia. After Ukraine, today we are 65 billion.
Yeah, Putin is selling oil and gas to get around the sanctions from the West, and so he's very happy to be able to sell oil and gas to India.
Through
By the way,
India.
Putin was not around in the 70s. He was
Yes.
he was not there. He was not involved. He did not deal with the Seventh Fleet or anything like that. And Putin, is let me throw this in the hopper. Putin is a war criminal. There's an arrest warrant out for him, and we know that he has kidnapped children, raped, tortured, been involved in atrocities over and over again, and still is doing that. And he has actually nabbed Indian people who came to Russia for jobs and forced them into the army.
Yes.
We know this because Putin and Modi discussed this in that recent trip that Modi made to Moscow. So, Putin is a bad guy. Everyone knows he's a bad guy. Now, he's not a democracy leader. He's an autocrat in the fullest sense, whereupon there's a strange, distinction between Russia and India, because India is a democracy and proud of it. So why in the world would Modi be supporting here in 2024 a war criminal and a guy who is trying to be an autocrat in every way, shape, or form? Why would he support somebody like that? That's not the moral fiber of India.
True, Jay. Very true and very to the point. But right now in India, it is strategic interest. If you see India on the map, it's a peninsula surrounded by China and Pakistan. Even if you view Russia in its in isolation, we still need Russia to counter China. You remember the Galwan incident which we spoke about? This next day, it was a bilateral between Russia and China. Now that Galwan incident, where they're fighting like college guys with fists, could have easily escalated into a full-blown, attack, which would escalate further. But Russia called China to the table in the morning, within a few hours. So for India, you need Russia to to neutralize China. Correct? And secondly, not only for economically, it is helping India a lot, especially when every country is going into recession because of the oil and gas and the repayments which happen, the selling of goods. What is India's contribution in this $65 billion? 5 billion we are purchasing back. So 60 million is export and 5 billion is import. So see how much benefit India gets out of this. So if you go to see, it is just national self-interest that is high at play. Moral grounds and everything goes a little further down, because you see, Modi has made it very clear that war is not the answer to everything. He keeps on repeating it at every stage. He even repeated in the bilateral.
When he went to see Putin, that was the big quote: "War cannot solve problems. Let's make peace with Ukraine right away." And it sounds good on the surface of it, but what he's really saying is he wants to support Putin in the war against Ukraine. He wants Putin to have what Putin wants. And, and a lot of people are saying he's doing that because he wants to endear himself to Putin. And he is betting on Trump because he knows that Trump would be seeking the same thing. Everyone in the world is watching to see what happens in this election here in the US. And it is a delicate balance Modi has got to do, but when it comes out at the end, he is supporting Putin against Ukraine, and he's betting on Trump in the sense that that would be the end, according to Trump, of the war in Ukraine. This is problematic. When he says war cannot solve problems, he's really saying, I support Putin. I support Putin's war against Ukraine. And it's hard to really get along with that. I mean, I don't think he's going to make a lot of friends in Congress, either by way of, I suppose the Democrats would not like what he has to say. The Trump GOP MAGA people will probably like what he has to say. So he's actually, involved in this balancing act, not only with Modi, with Putin and Trump, but with the Republicans who follow Trump. He is actually playing for the electorate in the U.S.
Yeah, Jay, you see now what is the conceptualization that Ukraine is Biden's issue, and we have to go on the opposite side and support Putin. So, Ukraine, what happens in Ukraine, annexation of Ukraine, everything goes to the back burner. And what has happened? Biden has supported Ukraine, so we don't support Ukraine. It's going to go that path, Jay. It's just that I don't like my predecessors' policies. I'm going to frame my own. And with my own, I will bring peace to the world. You're going to have three or four very powerful leaders at the top who are going to indulge in UN politics, if you know what I mean. It'll be all hunky dory on the top, and below it'll be all strategic and dynamic things going on. Even if they have to trample on people's heads, they're going to do it. It is all going to be selfish interests which come into play.
It's a risk for Modi because, he has kind of come out on Putin. He's come out on supporting Putin and opposing Ukraine for the world to see, for Europe to see, for the American market, whatever it's worth, to see. I mean, he's involved in these embraces. Not only did he say war cannot solve problems, meaning he was going to support Putin's war, but also, he had a number of photographs where he is in an embrace with Putin. And then you find out that Indian people were actually in the Russian army, however they got there, and died fighting Ukraine. So, I mean, what's happened is India has taken a side. When you connect all these dots, what you get is India is very close with Putin and is involved in the war against Ukraine, which is an immoral war. And so, I mean, that's a piece of history too. That will not be forgotten, don't you think?
Yeah, Jay, that is right. These soldiers who are going, they are not from India. They are Nepali people who from Nepal who want to join the Indian army. But these advertisements come out from Russia. If you want to join the Russian army, you will get free immigration. That's the advertisement that is put up. So that is how these youth reach Russia, not because of direct recruitment through the government or supporting the Russian army in this case. So they don't do that. It is private advertisements which come out saying that you will get Russian citizenship if you become a soldier. And youth who want to go to foreign lands, it happens in every country, and they want to go over there. That is the scene that happens, Jay. And Putin and Modi, Modi has when this embrace thing, he's made it his trademark to embrace and greet the leaders that he meets. And Putin hosted him in an informal setting. That was when they were having and the entire bilateral took place in Hindi, in the language of India. So you see, there is a lot of buttering done by Putin more towards Modi. He is making a red carpet welcome for Modi. It is not Modi trying to butter up Putin. It is the other way around. Putin is keeping Modi in his good books. It's like that. And for Modi to show himself as a world leader is very important because he won a very close election in India. And Jay, like I told you, our enemy on the doorstep is China. And to keep China quiet, really India needs Russia. Because unless Russia, if we go for a full-fledged war with China, economy dips, you have a big problem because it is right at the doorstep. And China is right now far more advanced than India in warfare. So it would be a hard-fought battle going to a defeat, which India cannot afford. So, and China surprisingly came up with a statement saying that the West is again very wary of three of us coming together. So China put themselves also into this bilateral, like, unwanted guests, like even I am there, take me also in it.
I totally agree. We are involved in a transitional moment here.
Yes,
For a
yes.
long time, if you asked me, a decade or two or three ago, what the U.S. future was with India, I would say, oh God, look, we have such close relations. We gave them nuclear energy. Remember that?
Yes.
We wanted to build a great bridge with India as a co-democracy in the world. There are, as you know, millions of Indians who have successfully, immigrated to the United States and who are very successful in academia and in business. They're CEOs of major global corporations operating out of the U.S. I mean, they're really a global organization. And so, but things are changing. This affair, that's maybe the wrong word, but this relationship that Trump has, Putin has fashioned with Modi, Modi has fashioned with, Putin, has been the subject of criticism in the U.S. and in Europe. So things are changing. If you ask the average person on the street, what do you think about India's foreign policy? He would not be so positive about it, either in the U.S. Or Europe. Now, I don't know where the Trump factor works here, because if Trump wins, that's likely to change. But what I see is India is joining up with Russia and China, and being part of that group in the world. And as a result, its relations with the U.S. are predictably different and possibly strained. So what I'm saying is there is a transition going on. Would you agree?
Yeah, Jay, I'll bring you on this. That let's little juggle back into history again. US, India, US was always sided Pakistan against India. Okay, it happened when Bill Clinton came onto the scene during the end of his tenure, that he visited India first. He danced in a village. He brought India in US relations to life. So that was the beginning of the real thaw in the US India relations. And Jay, he went to Pakistan and condemned terrorism. Earlier, it would always be, if you have read history books, anybody who wanted visit India would always have to pay a visit to Pakistan. Anybody who wanted to visit, it was always India, Pakistan together. But today, everybody views Pakistan as a failed state. It is no longer existing. You cannot relate India to Pakistan. India is a developing state, number 4 in GDP. So it is different from a Pakistan consideration. So anybody who wants to come to India will come to India. Earlier, I'm telling you, Jay, look up the books. Anybody wanted a visit to India would always plan a corresponding visit to Pakistan. So it was always, if you want to think about India, think about Pakistan. No, he's changed this. Modi has changed this because people view India as India rather than correlating it with Pakistan. We are different. So that never happened in before considerations before. And imagine US taking the side of Pakistan, feeling that Pakistan is a better ally than India, right on the face. And the task force which was first formed was against Japan, which was a real enemy in the World War II. India was never an enemy to bring the Seventh Fleet in. So that is the kind of thawing that India US have got in the relationship. Now it's such a strong bilateral. We are the biggest trade between US and India, and in US always views India as a counter to China.
But I wonder, though, my question to you is, uh, how do people in India feel? Is there a difference of opinion on this? Are some people criticizing Modi for what he's doing?
Jay, see, Modi is elected for a third term. Historic third term. Why I say historic? Because France couldn't get a anti-incumbency factor plays big in these countries, and for 15 years you want to see the same person as your prime minister. And we have analyzed it through our programs, Jay, that Modi has been a victim of pseudo liberals, of saying that Modi favors the Hindu. Uh, Religion or Hindus more than the Muslims in our country. But Jay, no policy, no issue has been divided on the basis of religion in India. This is false propaganda, which is created by the pseudo liberals. And Jay, when they crib about religion, believe me, they are the ones who take maximum benefit from the ration cards. They are the ones who take maximum benefit from the government schemes. They are, like they have demographic politics. They have more children, more benefits, more schemes. In India, there is no barrier restricting you on the basis of religion. Nothing. We have freedom of religion. So then, how do you say that Modi is anti-Islamic? How? There's no basis. If you just put a quote and you leave it up to the person in front to defend the quote or offend the quote, it doesn't make any sense. Give some proof that he has been anti-Muslim or he has been pro-Hindu in any which way. If he is restoring old in Indian temples, doesn't mean he is pro-Hindu. If he is, if he is promoting International Yoga Day on the UN platform, doesn't mean he is anti-Muslim. Hinduism is 7, 8,000, the oldest religion in the world. So he's promoting that on the world stage. You can't accuse him of not. He's promoting Indianness.
Roopmati, one of the other issues that appears in the press that I looked at, and there's press all over the world about what we're talking about, is that to the extent that there are bad optics about Modi's bilateral relationship and support of Putin, even assuming there are bad optics for some people, some countries, some groups around the world, that those bad optics will be forgotten. You know the way history moves. You know there's a kind of news cycle, an optics cycle, and that over time this will all become less important to those who would criticize Modi for his newfound close relationship with Putin. Do you agree?
Yeah, Jay, see, it's the same. It's actually literally the same. Germany is supporting Ukraine with weapons, but still buying gas from Russia. So it's that kind of a dual policy that a country has to play to keep your economics in place. Now, if Germany shuts down Russian gas, the economy will collapse. So all the while that they want to support Ukraine, they also have to take care that they take the benefits from Russia also. So without having any historical ties. So for India, for Modi, Jay, make no mistake, these are two statesmen who have been together for over 2 decades. They call each other brothers. And I have an inkling that when Putin visited India for around 8 hours, a few days before he invaded Ukraine, it was to inform, to confide what he was going to do. Because that power walk which they do is different from normal walks that if I can show you the clip, you will be excited about it. That this is the dynamics that happens in international politics, that they know what is happening. The strategic support that they get from their partners, their allies. Russia counts India as their top 5 friends, and very vocally they count India as the top 5. And India, Jay, has collaborated with Russia on so many things. And you remember, remember the economic corridor that they are putting up. So that is so important for all these countries: Russia, Saudi Arabia, Israel. Everybody's coming together, Italy, so that they bypass all these Houthis and everything, and they create a very safe and swift economic corridor.
We know that that Trump, if he wins, takes power, whether he wins the vote or just takes power, as he tried to do before, he will support Putin. And that will be, in effect, supporting getting closer to India and Modi because of Modi's position on this. So that's on the one side. But on the other side, it's maybe more complicated. Joe Biden has supported Ukraine. He's opposed, Putin in many ways, including a lot of sanctions, many of which haven't worked. And we understand that Kamala Harris is going to follow Joe Biden's policy on that. And Joe Biden has 4 or 5 months to continue to advance that policy. But presumably, Kamala Harris will continue it too. But as you say, and we have to recognize for Modi that this is very complex and it is a balancing act.
Yes.
And there are lots of considerations, not only historical, economic, political, geopolitical involved. So many things go to determine what position nation states take these days. So my question to you is, I'm going to make you Secretary of State again. I like having you as Secretary of State. I think you're a good Secretary of State. So Roopmati, suppose Secretary of State to Kamala Harris. Let's say she wins. How would you handle this difficult, complex engagement?
Jay, I'm always honored by your choice, but I would really, what do you say, watch, because right now you can do nothing about it because these two are not going to stab each other in the back. Definitely, has to be very clear. You cannot question right now why these people are doing this because it is the course of international relations that is happening. And Jay, okay, let's take it hypothetically. If India refuses to recognize Russia or refuses to, acknowledge Putin's gestures or any which way becomes very anti-Russia, would that give a good image of India as a country? It would not. It would show India as a very disoriented or country which is not loyal in its roots. Right now, India is a long-lasting friend. Being friends with Russia would never mean being enemies with US. India has always prioritized US as the first partner and Russia as a friend. So this kind of is that. Tell me who is your bestie. It's like that, It's exactly that situation when you're in a group and your friends ask you, "Tell me who is your bestie." It's like that. So it's just that they should all enjoy a cup of coffee together and be together just for the sake of development of humanity. Literally, I'm telling you, they should just stop the wars because as we speak, the wars continue. Years and years have passed, wars have continued. So we need leaders who just stop the wars, bring people to conclusions, and concentrate on economics rather than, this. And bringing Putin to his senses and keeping him on track for economics rather than going to Ukraine would be, the duty of all. I prefer it.
Well, as Secretary of State, you'd be interested in international relations, diplomatic relations with every country in the world, every single one, including India, of course, because we also have a long relationship. Maybe it's imperfect with India, and India is very important in terms of population, education, productivity, and its relations with others. So as the Secretary of State, do you feel that we should be spending more time with India, with Modi, courting him, trying to get closer to him, improving our relationship with him, reinforcing, the positive relationship we've had with India over all these years? As Secretary of State, would you spend more time with him?
Jay, India and the US are natural allies. As democracies, they are natural allies. They understand each other, and the intermingling that has happened due to the diaspora, that we speak about who have contributed to each other's economy so well. The bilateral, you remember the G20 which happened. The US was in the forefront to talk about the corridors. And bypassing this is the BRI road of China. So keeping India and US together is not a task. It comes very naturally, and Modi will give up the world but never give up its relation with the United States. That is a written statement, Jay. He would never ever compromise on US interests over any other country, simply because uh, our relations, bilateral relations, have been on an upward progression. It has never been, what do you say? It has never gone down. It has always been progressing upwards. We had our downs, but it has gone from strength to strength. And trading connections, strategic connections, support, all these become so important, Jay. Biden was one of the first presidents to give Modi a state visit. When Trump came to India, he got he was very fascinated with the fact that Nixon was greeted by 5,000 people. He was very fascinated by this. And Modi got to know about this. So Modi has lined up his entire route from the airport till the stadium, that is the world's largest cricket stadium. The entire route was surrounded by people chanting Trump, Trump, Modi, Modi. I mean, can you imagine the high that this fellow got? And when Trump entered the stadium, Jay, a full-fledged, filled back to the brim, they were chanting his name. This guy got an ego boost of, that he had always spoken that he was very fascinated with Nixon getting such a welcome, and he got a bigger welcome, a 5 times bigger welcome than Nixon. So he loved it. He loved it. That anti Modi propaganda was that they had these smoke fires, which could be seen from Trump's. They had lit these smoke bombs to show that there are disturbances. Trump ignored them. Ignored. So that's the kind of trust Trump put on Modi. So any US president who comes, they know that India is ally, a friend, and they can trust India forever. It's like that.
We'll have to leave it there. Thank you so much, Roopmati Khandekar, our geopolitical analyst. This has been a very important discussion, and I think we're going to find as we go forward that the points you make are very important to understanding the relationship between the four countries, India and Russia, India and China, India and the US. And we have got to focus on all of that going forward. Thank you so much, Roopmati.